to accept the consent agenda with the removal of those 2 items.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Hewson, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Hewson.
Thank you. Yes, under the administration, authorized extending the lease agreement with the State of Minnesota Department of Military Affairs to allow the National Guard use of the old jail area for training. And this was a 3-year lease, so we do not anticipate being on this campus in 3 years. In fact, we should be vacating next January. So I did reach out to Administrator Kelly, and if the building is still here, they can still potentially use it for a period. And we do have a 60-day out, but this way, you know, you've got the extension of the 3-year lease in place. So just wanted to clarify that for people if they read this and kind of wonder why we're extending the lease till 2024. So that's all I had on it.
All right, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair?
So I'll make a motion. Oh, wait, should we wait for both of them?
Well, mine was related to her is what I had.
Oh, okay.
Because I was going to pull it also.
Oh, okay.
But they said you were, so. I guess I was looking for more clarification on what it's being used for and how often. I guess the ongoing discussion was that the old jail wasn't really usable for anything, and now I come to find out we've had an ongoing contract there with the National Guard. So can anyone speak to how often or how much or what's happening
I can
there?
probably answer some of your questions, Commissioner, if that's all right.
Sure, I didn't know that was still under your purview either. I thought it was empty, abandoned space.
It's really not, the jail space is not under my purview. That's why the lease is with, through Lee. However, we've been working with, so it's the guard unit out of Monticello. Their classification was changed. They were a military police unit, and their classification changed, and they changed them to corrections officers. This was about 3 years ago when we signed the lease, or just before then. We started working with them slightly before then because they were looking at training options and things like that. And so being a jail and full of corrections officers, we started working with them. They took a tour of the building and saw that our old jail facility was very similar to the places that they typically send their people to. And we worked out an arrangement where they could come in and use one or two of the housing units, the old housing units that were empty, for training purposes. They go use them for all the different types of corrections training, whether it be just a movement of people. There's no locks on the doors because we had to change the building up for all the life safety issues because there's not 24/7 people in there anymore. But the spaces are still very relevant to what they do, and they use those spaces to train their corrections officers. Movement, control of housing units, extractions, all the different things that they need training on. And they use it generally once a month or more. They do have a 2-week period in the summertime where they're using it pretty much constantly for almost 2 weeks, where they're getting their guys and gals that are coming in, for their 2-week duty. And then they'll use it pretty regular. During 2020, they didn't use it because of all the COVID stuff and whatnot. But prior to that, they get the keys from us. They come over to our building, get the keys, come in, they clean up, they leave. To the best of my knowledge, and Lee, maybe you can weigh in here, I don't believe we've had any problems with them whatsoever.
No, we've had no. It's been smooth.
Not anything left laying around, not anything. So and they use it mostly in the late afternoon and early evening. So most of the people from the county are done and gone by then.
So is there any collaborative training going on between your corrections folks and those folks, or any other agency that's using that facility with them, or on their own now?
Not collaborative training, no.
Oh, okay. And then one last thing, when this lease expires, is there any thought to offer some use of the training center in a collaborative effort with our folks, or on their own?
We have not. I have not talked to them about that.
I have not either, no.
Yep.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, and Commissioner Ketchmark, yes, I didn't even think about the fact that, they were using it for training when we were talking about the frustration of trying to figure out a use. I was thinking I meant a more permanent use for the old jail. But anyway, this has been a very good way utilize the space for part of the time anyway.
And one more point, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So if, let's say, civil unrest broke out in the metro, let's say, and the National Guard were put on standby, would the bunk, the block area be available if they would need a place, safe place
This,
to rest?
in our old building you're talking
Yes.
about? No.
No, they couldn't spend the night and utilize that.
That building is no longer
It's not secure.
able to be used that way.
Oh,
Plumbing, it's not. It's the physical structure that they use for their training.
okay.
So it's not the, because I don't even believe that the plumbing is hooked up entirely throughout that old building anymore.
Now there were some leaks that
Yeah,
they end up having to
there's-
disconnect some of it.
Right. And there's no locks on any of the doors. They've all been physically removed. So it's not that they're just been turned off. They've physically been removed from the doors.
Just a thought in case something breaks out that, hey, if we got
I
something
think most of
available,
those spaces are being used by different departments within the county for storage.
Oh,
So,
okay, thank you.
yep,
Well, you've got room in the other one
We do.
anyway.
we do.
You can see open.
Okay. So, motion for that, please?
I'll make a motion to approve item A1 under the consent agenda.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Vetch. Any further discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Ketchmark.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. So, under the planning and zoning, there was a list of items that was on the consent agenda for us to approve. One is under number A, or number 1, letter A, the Donovan DeMars request to rezone. This one has drawn more attention than others. It seems like there's a narrative out there from township supervisors that have reached out, most likely to other board members and the public. And I'm a member of the Planning Commission, one of 7. Maybe if Sean Riley is here, if he could maybe weigh in on, in a similar matter, I think it'd be relevant if the board heard what the Planning Commission heard in a little summary, so that you know what we were looking at, and then I can weigh in on, as the eyes and ears of the Planning Commission, what we were looking at.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Planning Commission, I'll do my best to condense what can be a 30-minute meeting into something quick. Just to remind you of the process, the public hearing is at the Planning Commission for rezonings. That's where we notify for the public and whoever's interested to come and testify. The Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the county board, who has final authority over rezonings, but this is not a public hearing. So the property in question in Chatham Township made an application to rezone the property from general agriculture to ag residential, minimum 10-acre lots. The property is in the land use plan, guided for development in that zoning classification. Part of our rezoning process is to require the applicant to meet with the township for a recommendation from the township. It's not required that it's a yes or a no. The requirement is to meet with the township to get their input. In this case, no, there was not a development road, so there wasn't a requirement for a statement about a new road. We did a site inspection of the property, the Planning Commission did, had a thorough discussion with the professional involved on the piece of property and took input from, I believe, the township and the public. Ultimately, a recommendation was made to approve the rezoning from ag to AR for 4 lots. There would be 4 lots involved with this rezoning. If this is approved, that item would go back to the Planning Commission for review of the subdivision, where the Planning Commission would have authority over the subdivision.
Thank you, Sean. And now I can weigh in a little bit on what the Planning Commission had for additional information to look at. So we had a map, and of course, Chatham Township is about half the size of a regular township, which is, regular is 36 square miles, but we take into account the responses, and the townships allowed to give a written response if they approve or not the request. So in this case, we received feedback from Marysville and Chatham Township, and this was a two-part issue on the agenda. There was a cluster, and then there was a request to cluster some eligibilities, and then to rezone the area. And what we got for responses as to, they both disapproved the request, and the basis was traffic and road maintenance. That was their reasoning. So we had a township representative at the meeting in person from Chatham, and we had Marysville on Zoom. There were questions asked by the planning commission reference to the road maintenance and the traffic. And one specific was from a planning commission member that's on a township board, 19 years, and he said, I'm really interested in this. How is this related? Because we look at it a different way, because when you give a entitlement out, then you get tax money that helps offset costs for road maintenance. In this case, there's a handful of eligibilities. Could we get some feedback on that? There was no additional feedback given besides the 3 or 4 words on the narrative there. So opportunity was given to make the case. Marysville said, well, we don't like to give up a building entitlement because of the tax purposes, so it flipped from Marysville to Chatham. They lost the tax eligibility there. So in my mind, we gave opportunity for them to make their case, and as a planning commission, I don't see that it's our job to walk them through the process and help, for or against, other than what they give us for feedback. So we did our diligence in giving them the opportunity for the feedback, and in looking at the past history, there's a lot of rezoning in Chatham Township, and including right in that neighborhood, a lot of the same things, including similar cluster requests that have been approved by the township. So this isn't, a rare case that came before them, and that they always take a stance to not approve them. So it was approved unanimous 7-0 to do the rezoning, and I support that decision. And another question that came up from the planning commission is, well, isn't there a host of these building entitlements in this area, but they're being kind of reconfigured? And the point is that if the eligibilities already exist in the area, does it really matter where they are if you're talking about traffic? Because most likely your traffic is still going to be taking the same roads regardless of what side of the road it's on or whose township it's on. So I just wanted to clear that up a little bit, because I'm the only one of the 5 that's at the planning commission, and I think that you should hear it from the eyes and ears that we had listening to the case.
Thank you, Commissioner Fitzpatrick.
Anything else to add, Sean?
I'll wait for questions.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have a question, Mr. Chair. I'll be, voting with the township on this, but if requested that I do.
Okay. All right, could I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning as requested under number 1, letter A, from Chatham Township.
I will second that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Vetch. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
You can.
On to our regular timed agenda. We're a few minutes behind, so we'll blame Lindsay.
She does say she's always late, right?
Yeah? Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning.
Morning.
Is Brian Asselson here? You join me, please. So I got some background on our request today regarding the Lestadian Large Group Assembly. This is I think it's an annual activity where they have a large group. The reason we're having it on the timed agenda is that they did not give us their application in excess of 60 days as required by the ordinance. As my understanding is, they have dotted all their i's and crossed all the t's. Please.
Mr. Chair, the
Lestadian Church, I think Bruce is here, who we worked with 2 years ago. They had quite a large gathering in 2019. Was not actually planning on having something this year, but decided to have a more localized, I think, not a national gathering, but a more localized gathering. So it's smaller numbers than 2 years ago. Bruce first contacted me, I think, in April, and so they were looking at this. Of course, we were still dealing with the pandemic, and I think that has something to do with the fact that this, application is not being made 60 days in advance as called for in the ordinance. That being said, the last time that they were granted a permit, they requested some waivers. There's some things in the ordinance that require like fencing, and that was waived. There's an old language requirement that says they have to have public telephones available. That's outdated. So there were a number of things waived. The one item that was not waived last time was the requirement for presence of an ambulance. And I think the way that it was worded in 2019 was the approval was that as long as they had an ambulance on site when required by the sheriff's office. They work with both our sheriff's office and highway department on traffic and other public safety issues. So the application this time is very similar, and they've requested the same waivers, and so I'm not sure if the sheriff's office would weigh in on the ambulance issue, but that's, otherwise, as Lindsay indicated, they've dotted the i's and crossed the t's.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Commissioner Batch.
I tell you, for the amount of people that out there, you wouldn't know it. They do a fantastic job of organizing people in and out of there. It's wholeheartedly support. And Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the application for the Lestadian Lutheran Church for a large assembly on June 28th through July 7th. So.
I will second that, and I was impressed by, that's quite a lengthy document for their agreement, so, yeah.
Motion by Commissioner Batch, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any other discussions?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Ketchmark.
Just comments, and I had a firsthand knowledge and experience working with those guys. I think it was 2 years ago as a deputy, because they hired us for traffic, and very respectful, well-behaved. You didn't need a fence to contain these folks. And I rode around on a golf cart and handed out baseball cards to the kids, and they did have an ambulance there, but I don't have any request to go above and beyond what is suggested here. There just wasn't any trouble or conflict with traffic or anything else.
Yeah, that was going to be my biggest question is if traffic was a problem.
Well, a deputy
It
was,
wasn't at all.
I assume a deputy will be there. I think that was helpful for, that presence there. I don't know if that's panning out this year or not, but it seemed helpful.
So, hi, my name is Bruce Harrell. I'm the representative from the church, also a member of the broader LLC organization. So the difference between 2019 and this year is our church is hosting the event rather than the broader organization. Because of COVID, the broader organization actually went in a completely online format. So what we will be doing is hosting on our church site actually the online broadcast. And by going through this permit, we're enabling camping at the adjacent Silver Springs property. And so that's kind of the underlying desire here. That at most we expect there to be half the people from the previous event. And since we're centered on Monticello's property, as we've been going back and forth with the sheriff and the highway department, we've kind of gelled on a solution that does not involve the sheriff. Because at the entrance to the Monticello Church, we have adequate turn lanes and bypass lanes to support that traffic. So there will still be overflow in RVs in the west field, but we don't expect near the traffic volume in that area as we had in 2019.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any more questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, sir. 905, Sheriff's Office. Matt Frankler is who's listed.
Oh, Brian's up.
Resolution to accept the 2021 State of Minnesota Annual Boat and Water Safety Grant in the amount of $19,108.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. This is a grant that we've been participating in since I can recall. It's one of the 3 boat and water grants that we annually use. This grant is primarily used to supplement our full-time boat and water deputy's salary. It's in the amount of $19,108.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Ketchmark?
I'm pointing out because I looked at the form and on the bottom, we got background and justification and that what we get is accepted annually. And a couple of us weren't here in the past to accept this. And from my experience working over there, if we did a report on anything and we said based on what we did in the past, we took care of it as we did annually, that would have gotten rejected and sent back. So I have a couple questions, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And I read the grant application. It talks about what you can use it for, and it mentions a spending plan a couple of times. I'm wondering if, as far as wages, does it cover just straight time or is it overtime for?
This is strictly straight time. So we work with Carla, and basically once we meet that amount, it's documented on their timesheet. Once that amount has been used, then it goes back into the sheriff's fund as far as paying for the rest of their salary.
Okay. So is there a spending plan that going forward, does it include equipment also or just wages, do you know? Or?
Well, it can include equipment as well. We participate in the boat and water equipment grant as well, and we've been extremely successful over the last few years. We've gotten jet skis, boats, dive equipment, and what have you. So we have just always allocated this money just specifically for the wages. Other agencies that may not have full-time staff or what have you might allocate this for like maintenance on boats or what have you as well, so.
But you got just planned for wages?
Yep, we just use it for the wages, correct, yes.
And thank you. And no mention of a matching grant from the county, so that doesn't come in with
No,
this?
there's no match with this.
Okay. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to accept the resolution to accept the 2021 State of Minnesota Annual Boat and Water Safety Grant in the amount of $19,108.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any further discussions, questions? Roll call vote. Commissioner Ketchmark?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Resolution carries unanimous. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Malley, it's been a long time since we've seen you.
It has been. Good morning,
Morning.
Board. Hope everybody's doing well. Today typically I would put this on the consent agenda also, but knowing we have a couple of different new board members, I figured I'd be here in case there were questions. The Sierra Mark contract, 3-year extension is what we're asking for signatures and requesting. The first year would be no increase in our current contract rates. Year 2 would be 2.5% increase, and year 3 would be a 3% increase. This contract is all about the food and the labor to prepare the food, because we don't include any maintenance or parts into this as far as taking care of the kitchen, other than cleaning so cleaning the dishes and preparing the food and then buying the food. That's what this contract is all about.
So in 2022, it'll be 2.5%, and 23, it'll be 3%.
Correct. And it goes June to July. They run similar to the states.
Mr. Chair, Captain Malley, what is the population, current population? I mean, it's,
We're averaging about 140, between 140 and 150. It is slowly ticking up. We're seeing more court activity and different things happening now. But we are seeing our count tick up.
I mean, very reasonable rates, I mean,
Yep.
for everything, so.
And I do compare with other jails and whatnot, and we're doing well.
I never heard anybody complain about the food.
Oh, I do once in a while. No, for the most part, it's good. I mean, it's cafeteria style food, and you know, we obviously have diet issues and religious issues and things like that, so we have to be, you know, pretty careful with what we're serving. Most everything is turkey or chicken based, but it is good quality food.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Ketchmark.
I heard some reference to that we had the ability over there with the commercial kitchen for some food preparation that could be served to the public in vending machines or areas. Would that be the same
So
contract?
what you're probably hearing about is in the new courthouse building, there was a cafeteria place made down there. We have talked with Aramark and they are interested in helping us. It's not something they particularly like to do, but we have the ability in our kitchen and whatnot to do like a soup salad type lunch menu for down there. Currently, we are not doing it. There's just not enough traffic down there right now. Well, it is, the space is prepped. We do have the ability in the kitchen to prepare it, and then Aramark has agreed to partner with us on that once we get to a place where there's people in the building.
The government center.
Yep.
It's a good thought, I think, because for an employee in a lunch break to get to downtown Buffalo and back to the north side there, you're using up a lot of your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Thank you. I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to approve the contract with Aramark.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Wetter. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Adam, nice to see you this morning.
Nice to see you too.
Morning.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Adam Austin. I'm the Wright County Extension Educator for Agriculture and Horticulture. This morning I'm here to recognize Judy and Kurt Spike over there along with the rest of their family. So I'm just going to quickly kind of read a couple things about their family, and then I think usually you want to do a picture with them too, so we'll do that quick too. So the Farm Family Recognition Program has existed for over 30 years and honors farm families from throughout Minnesota for their contributions to the ag industry and their local communities. All of the honored families have made significant contributions to Minnesota agriculture and their communities. Spike's Farm of Buffalo is Wright County's Farm Family of the Year for 2021. 3 generations of the family actively contribute to the farm where they raise beef and pork. Kurt and Judy, along with their son John, their son Chris, and Chris's 3 kids, Lily, Hunter, and Colby, also grow corn, soybeans, and hay on about 170 acres. Most of their crops are used to feed the cows and pigs that they raise. The Spike family started farming in 1973, and in 1974, their dairy operation expanded to about 50 cows later in 1979. They continued milking until 93 when they transitioned to primarily beef, and throughout the years have successfully experimented with other forms of revenue such as eggs from a small flock of chickens. 2 years ago, Chris and Hunter wanted to start raising a couple sows, and the Spikes have grown the pork side of the business since. Much of their business is done through relationships with local consumers and local butcher shops. Spike's farm location presents a unique situation. Adjacent to the farm is Buffalo High School, and on the other 3 sides of the property are growing residential areas. Kurt and Judy appreciate the neighborly attitudes their neighbors have brought with them, and some residents have said they enjoy seeing the cows in the pasture behind the farm site. This situation is not without challenges, though. Traffic makes it unsafe to move equipment to the fields at certain times of day. Narrow city streets with parked cars can make it difficult to maneuver large equipment. The family combats these challenges by communicating with the neighbors before spring fieldwork starts and planning ahead. Spike's farm illustrates difficulties some family farms see from growing urban areas, and even better illustrates how to work with neighbors to overcome these challenges. Kurt and Judy have undoubtedly done a great job passing on their passion for agriculture. Chris's kids help with chores after school and on weekends. Lily and Hunter are very active in FFA, with Lily even serving as an officer. Lily is also heading down to Iowa State University to pursue a degree in an agricultural-related field. The Spike family is a tremendous family to represent Wright County farms. They know it's possible that one day the growing city of Buffalo might present too many challenges to continue the farm on its current location, but for now, as Kurt put it, they are going to do what we can, the best we can. So, that's the Spike family. So yeah, I think traditionally you commissioners want to take a picture with them, so I have this for you.
Unless they would like to say
Okay with
anything.
that.
Yeah, no, I think we should hear from them.
Yeah.
Have much to say.
That's right, we'll ask you all sorts of questions.
You're
That's what I'm afraid
you're
of.
so busy working. Well,
So,
yeah.
you've been farming for quite a few years then. Did you grow up on that farm then, yourself?
Yes, I did. Dad purchased it in '73. '79, we created a partnership. We kept expanding, but a couple of our farms were sold off that we rented. Now we're pretty much just raising enough to feed the cattle. Cash crop, 40, 50 acres of beans, and the rest all is being fed.
Good.
With being so close to the residential area, you did talk about having some issues with the traffic and stuff, and you've been being able to work with the residents and.
It's getting tougher all the time. They're putting them roundabouts in and trying to get around them with equipment and duals and diggers. And but we,
Gotta get smaller equipment.
that's how we started. We
Took too long then, right?
But the school lets out and stuff. You just don't go for an hour on the road. Try to go, it's 6, 7 in the morning before traffic picks up, and bring the equipment home after 6, 7 o'clock. Or we do a little extra chasing instead of driving up and down the road with equipment. But everything's within a couple of miles of home, so it isn't that big a deal.
Oh,
And we usually let the neighbors know, especially like fall when the combine has to go down the road and stuff, that, we're gonna leave at this time. If we can make sure you don't park on the street if you can, that's great.
Get the flashers and everything going, but still they're in a hurry. They'll run you over.
yeah, wow.
Yeah, that's a problem throughout the county for farmers, I think. There's some narrow roads everywhere.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I'm encouraged that there's more interest in agriculture now actually than there has been for the past some years. I understand there's 120 on the waiting list for the ag class in Buffalo. So I know. So that's really something. Maybe you can become instructors. We had a class.
I'm on my way out now.
So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. People are kind of turning more to think of where things come from.
I think COVID had a lot to do with that.
It-
People
yep.
had to rethink what they were doing,
Yeah,
which is good.
it is. People, learn to cook and all kinds of things.
My daughter's even gardening, which really
yeah.
surprised me.
Yeah,
I appreciate the value that in your story there about how you guys have adapted to the many changes over the years in diversifying and contracting to meet the economic demands to keeping your farm alive and thriving. So
yes.
my hat's off to you.
Sure.
Thank you for doing what you do.
Mr. Chair.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that you're able to get along with your neighbors, because in our farming situation, we had a dairy and crop farm and a development right across the road from us also, and they were always complaining when you got a dryer going and equipment going down the road, everything, and funny thing of it is oftentimes on the edge of the city that they were in, they were allowed horses, and a lot of times it was their horses that got out from the fences and not our cattle, and so you kind of worked with them, but farther in it was different. Then I also wanted to mention, so was it your dad that was Spike's Locker from, so they have a history in Buffalo of
Well, and his great-great-grandparents founded Buffalo.
okay, wow.
The Sturgis goes back to the original Sturgis.
Great.
So, yeah, so there's a lot of longevity.
We're lifers.
Yes, yes.
So,
In the spring, we've had two neighbors that called, wanting to know when the cattle were going out to pasture.
Yeah.
They sit there, they name them, and they sit there, watch out on their porch every night.
well, we've been really
We told
fortunate.
them, we just had to wait, and we wanted to get around the fences and stuff. 'Cause you really have a headache if you got out and stampeded through a few of them yards.
Yeah. But the one edge that the pasture's on, those folks all bought their houses or built them there because the farm was there.
Yeah.
So we've been really fortunate and no complaining, I mean.
They knew what to expect when they moved there.
Right, and we try to do a good job making sure that we don't have, we're not stockpiling manure, we're not doing, I mean, we're doing the best we can, keep everything cleaned up and any smells under, wraps, and we're going through fences all the time to make sure that cattle don't get out and wreck somebody's property. The only one that causes a problem, or did cause a problem, was a horse that cleaned out the neighbor's bird feeder at the back of the fence. She took a picture of it, and the horse was cleaning the corn out of the bird feeder. And she wasn't upset about it, but she thought it was funny, But it's, that's the only one that's caused any problems, is the horse once in a while, doing something like that. So they moved the bird feeder now, so it's not as accessible to the horse.
Self-feeder in the
Yeah.
back.
So,
Funny.
Remove the temptation.
Yep.
it removed the temptation for the horse.
Yeah, that was nice, because they could have told you to move the fence.
Well, the neighbors are pretty protective of us, the ones that have been there for quite a while, and these were newer neighbors, and they came over and knocked on the door and wanted our phone number, and they didn't want to give them the phone number because they didn't know who. And they weren't gonna complain, they wanted to know so they could send us the picture of the horse cleaning out the bird feeder, and they had another picture last year when they put sod down, the cattle all lined up along the fence and watched the guys lay the sod. They had a picture of that, and so they're happy with it, so we knock on wood, we could have a lot of complaining if.
Well, congratulations,
Yes,
you're very
congratulations.
worthy of this honor.
Yes, for
Thank
sure.
you.
That, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution proclaiming the Spike family as the Wright County Farm Family of the Year for 2021.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Batch, second by Commissioner Wetter.
Thank you.
Any further discussions? The only thing is now, they'll have to come to the county fair and they're crowned and they have to have a speech at that
You have to
day?
have a speech ready.
I didn't tell them.
No, you didn't know.
That's what,
Day before?
Yeah, we'll say that.
Okay.
If there's a no-show, you know why.
that's what they were worried about too. They didn't want to make any speeches.
We're kind of simple people, we don't do a lot of exciting things, so.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Resolution, Commissioner Ketchmark.
Hi,
Hi.
Aye.
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 Resolution carries unanimous. Congratulations.
They want a picture?
I don't know if you want a picture?
We're fine.
Anywhere in front.
From the center. I can try.
We don't have Charlie, so we don't have that tall person.
We don't want Lori.
Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations.
that's your butter.
Congratulations. Yes, thank you so much.
I was hoping you had the kids here too.
Well, Lily I'm taking her to Iowa State this afternoon, so she's getting ready to go. She had to have all her paperwork ready and everything,
Oh.
so.
Oh, I remember those days.
She's our one continuing on for ag, so
Good, good, good,
Thank
good.
you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. You
You
too.
too.
All right, items for consideration. Cancel board meetings in August and November due to 5 Tuesdays. Commissioner, or Administrator Kelly?
Yes, sir. As you mentioned, 5 Tuesdays. Noting in August, we will be getting into the budget sessions. I don't know if folks have vacations planned prior to that. Typically, our default is the last one of the month, but I'm open to suggestions. November, similar situation. So I guess I'll open up the floor for suggestions, knowing November, we do have a holiday in there as well, so.
Mr. Chair, Administrator Kelly, I would like to see us cancel the first Tuesday in August. We start our budget a little bit later, and I mean, if there's, for some reason, a reason to have a late budget meeting, but it's just, I'll be gone that week. I'm saying that selfishly, but.
I would be all right with that, but I think then the second one, the 10th, because we don't have 2 weeks without a board meeting, because it makes it hard to do business. Maybe we have, instead of a workshop, having a board meeting on August 10th and forego a workshop on August. I don't know.
We could either forego the workshop or have it the 3rd. I mean, we could maybe do that. If we find out in July that we should have a workshop in August.
Yeah, we can play that by ear.
You put it, yeah.
Okay.
Because we'll have plenty, we won't be no shortage of meetings in August.
Yes.
No,
Absolutely.
there hasn't been shortage of meetings the whole year.
That's for sure.
All right,
If there's no objection, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to cancel the August 3rd board meeting.
I'll second that.
motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Vetch. Any other discussions?
We gonna do the November one also, or we gotta do that separately?
We'll have to do that separately.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. November 1.
Mr. Chair, so should we have said that we will have a board meeting on the 10th then, instead of workshop at this point?
Yeah, it'd be good to clarify it since it didn't go in the motion. I understood it to be that, but it might be good to just officially call it out.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to set a board meeting for August 10th
Instead of the
and cancel
workshop.
the workshop for that day, or
Second.
potentially postpone the workshop till the following week.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Wetter. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. November, anybody have any thoughts, cares?
I guess, Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd maybe lean towards the 30th, knowing that if we were going to have a packet, it would have to go out that Wednesday following the 23rd. So we'd have to get the agenda out the 24th, give time to review for that. Otherwise, Thanksgiving is following the 23rd, so it depends on how you want to play it, I guess.
And the second says it's election day.
Mr. Chair, Administrator Kelly, so we have the AMC conference on
7th. 7th.
actually, it's the, 6th through the 8th, so we wouldn't be here for the 7th, so that would be 2 meetings in a row without, or 2 weeks in a row without a meeting. Just a thought, I mean,
I could pose.
Should we cancel the 23rd?
21st,
Could do that too.
would that work better for staff? That way we would have the, we wouldn't have 2 weeks without a meeting.
We'll cancel the 23rd instead.
We cancel the 23rd. It really makes no difference to me, but I think that might be better for all of us if we don't have if we don't miss 2 weeks in a row.
Anybody?
Works for me.
Any problems, concerns?
No.
Not? I'll accept the motion.
I'm going to make that motion, Mr. Chair, to cancel the November 23rd board meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Houston, second by Commissioner Vetch. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. That should make planning for your summer now and fall a little bit easier. Department budget review, 450 public health.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jamie Goodrum-Schwartz with Health and Human Services. I'll just preface the discussion or any questions you have with, in 2019, as we were preparing this budget, we had no idea what 2020 was going to hold in store for us. So 2020 was a year unlike any other. I would say probably one of the most impacted department or division within our department, obviously, was public health. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah and Kate for any questions you might have regarding the 2020 public health budget.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Ketchmark.
Thank you. So we've had back and forth some emails with rounds of questions and answers, and I appreciate the help and all the clarification. And again, we're reviewing the 2020 budget, but there's been a lot of reviews, and this is the third or fourth department, last one for Health and Human Services. So, yes, it is. So appreciate that. We got to narrow it down to just a couple of things, and you're aware of what they are. So under the software and system support, there was $37,700 budgeted and $56,482.69 spent. So the question was why it was out of budget there, and the response was that it was incorrectly budgeted. So I was just wondering if you could clarify more on the reasoning that happened.
Yes. So our annual Nurse Family Partnership support fee, we budgeted it under object code 6235, which was publications and brochures, which was incorrect. So when we paid the invoice, we paid it to the correct object code of 6260 for software systems and support, which was aligned with our next budget period of 2021. So it was corrected. It was paid in 7/17 of 2020, so.
Okay, thank you. And then the next one was Program 453, Dental Initiative, Dental Coordinator, and I had asked some questions about that position. So in addition, is this, when the dental clinic starts, is this person going to have some role as far as referrals to that for people that need the services? And then also there's a $100,000 grant that's paying either all or in part. Does this cover all of the wages and benefits, or where are we at with that $100,000?
Yeah, I can answer those questions. So the dental initiative is separate from the dental clinic. So Blue Cross Blue Shield funds several of these coordinators in multiple regions of the state. They approach the human services directors in the 7W region, so that's Wright, Sherburne, Benton, and Stearns. And in that process, obviously, Wright County has been working on dental for many years, and it was determined by the directors that we were the best fit to have the position that serves the 4 counties. As far as the dental clinic, Greg, and I think Commissioner Hewsome, you mentioned him yesterday in some presentations that he's shared. He will be adding that clinic to a list of anybody that he would refer to. So he does work directly with people looking for dental services across the 4-county region. So it may be that it's the right fit for someone I would think in our county, or maybe in areas close to us in Sherburne, but there might be other resources farther away, and if he's way out and the client is way out in rural Stearns or Benton County, it might not be an appropriate fit. So it's another resource and referral source for him. The grant itself is $100,000. It does cover his entire cost, and it is, we resubmit every year for that. We've been told there's an initial 3 years of funding with the idea that there would be additional, I would think 3 years after that is what we've already discussed with them, with Blue Cross Blue Shield, separate pot of money.
And thank you. So is the $100,000 then a wash? Is there any left for anything else, or that takes care of it right to the penny?
We have some. I know we went back and forth when we made the budget with Blue Cross Blue Shield, because we have fleet vehicles, because there's considerable amount of travel, especially as we come out of the pandemic. He'll be doing outreach with clinicians and different partners in those 4 counties. They had wanted us to put more, I know, for instance, in travel and those things, but of course we have access to our fleets, so that was put into our indirects. We do charge our indirect rate to the grant to cover some of those expenses, printing and some of those things, but otherwise, no, there's not very much left over after the salary.
Okay, and then, so, and you touched on it, it's a 3-year contract, and then in your response, it's if it goes away.
It's a 1-year contract with renewals every year.
Oh, okay, because I see it's funded
That's-
position for 3 years, but,
It's not uncommon for our grants that they have renewals. Obviously, it's if we didn't hold up our end of the bargain, submit our grant updates and our reports, then, we would lose our grants, which we don't do.
and if you lose the grant or the position's eliminated, then it says the person would be removed from public health and given an option to fill a vacancy in another area. Does that guarantee the same wage, or at that point, would they fall under the reclassification policy with the county that would say if they're going to a lower paid job, they would have to stay flush?
We've never encountered that to date, so we have had attrition in Health and Human Services, and what that typically means, because we usually have a number of people in the same position, is that if we knew that this, we were not going to be renewing for the next year or something like that, then the actual title of Greg's position is Health Promotion Coordinator. So we'd be looking prior to the end of the contract. If somebody was leaving that position, then he would be, if there was somebody hired after him, it wouldn't be him leaving. It would be because he has seniority. It would be whoever would be the most recent hired person would be the one that would be potentially in danger of losing their job. So this is, I would say, more of a Sean Johnson type of question. In the past, we've had this happen with social workers. We've had this happen in other areas where we were able to just to hold a vacancy, knowing something was coming, then that person that, would move into that position, and we would just, that position would go away then. So that's the way we've been able to handle it. We're fortunate that we have multiple people in the positions that we can usually navigate through that. If it came to a position where we would not, let's say we had Greg or somebody else was on hire, this position was going to go away, and we didn't have any new position in that same area, we would come to the board and talk with the board about eventualities, and then Sean would be able to weigh in from there what our options were.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Then the last thing was basically summarizing a few of the responses on budget line items that were over or under on budget, and there wasn't any budget amendment done. And I talked to Lindsay from Finance, and I think she can probably speak to all of us as far as going forward, if there's anything, or Heather, could speak to this, how it is now, and how it may or may not change in the future with ERP coming on. So I think if we'll leave Heather kind of clear that part up, and I thank you again for looking into it and getting back to me, okay?
All you have for us then?
That is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners. We just kind of give you an update on how ERP is going to work. So during the process of the ERP building it, the implementation or business team came up with our decision was that we were going to not allow line items to go over budget. The system will not allow it. So there won't be that. There will always be a budget amendment needing to be done.
And then talking to Lindsay, it sounds like we're still in it one more year with what we have now because of it's not going to be a seamless transition per se.
Yeah, even in the first year, we're going to have to do budgets as a whole, and then it'll roll up. But then after that, it'll kind of build in each of the units. So going forward, then it will not allow that.
Okay.
So that's kind of what the budget team had discussed. And I don't know, Lee, if you want to add anything else, he was the budget stream owner, so.
I think you covered it.
It's helpful when that's the document we have to look at, and we talked about this, and there's a lot of time and people involved to come to this summit to go over it, and if it could be worked out ahead of that anybody can look at it in simple language and see, I think there would be a benefit to that also, but it's kind of a wait and see with ERP, and hopefully the service is there for us to kind of tweak it as needed for Wright County. That's what I'm hoping for. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, on to committee minutes. I'm going to take the first one for Committee of the Whole on June 1st. we had a couple of different things to discuss. At the end of the minutes, I would ask for a motion to accept the minutes, but not the recommendations, because we need to get some clarification of a couple of different things.
So what do you want to pull out?
Well, as we go through it here, there's some that have recommendations, some that don't. First item up was Buffalo Clinic Memorial. Dr. Bergdorf.
Bergdorf.
Pardon?
Bergdorf.
Bergdorf, sorry. Can't read. The physician lead for Alina Health Crossroads Clinic in Buffalo, he made a presentation regarding a statute or something for out at the county website, some bronze artwork with some estimates on pricing depending on what size and all that sort of stuff. And the discussion was led about regarding working with the city of Buffalo, and they should really take the lead on this. And Commissioner Hewsom was going to talk with the Buffalo mayor regarding the willingness for the city to take this over, and with some backing by the county. And I'm assuming there'll be more information on that to come.
Correct. I did meet with the mayor and Buffalo Strong. I met first with the mayor and then the mayor and Buffalo Strong to put out actually an interest for people to donate to this. This was, we haven't really talked about the scope of what we would be willing to put in. We're looking at more of a cost share or match. So between the county, the city of Buffalo, and the people who are part of the Buffalo Strong community, reaching out to other members. And we'd have to determine, as you said, what size we're talking. So anyway, that's, yep, more to come on that. So.
Okay, our second item to discuss was the ABM contract for cleaning purposes of all the different buildings. There's discussions about all the different buildings we have, the contract size, and this was just a revised contract because the contract that had expired in April, and we had talked about once we get moved into the new buildings and that sort of stuff, to review it and see what's going to work best for the county going forward. At that point, we'll have a better idea on sizes and actual costs at that point too. Originally, we had went with a contract because there was a savings. Right now, there's been more buildings added to it, so without having firm numbers, it'll be difficult to figure that one out. Once we're in the new building, then we can go out for bids and look to do it internally again, if that's what the board has decided to do.
And Mr. Chair, just, I don't know if you want to go through all the items or want to have more discussion on that, but just a question on clarity. The current contract will be, I'm assuming after today's motion, if it is accepted, we would sign that contract, which will take us through April of 2022. There was discussion about going out for bid. If we are going to do that, staff thinks we should get moving on that in the latter part of 21 yet. Just knowing that if we are going to have a transition time prior to April 2022, we'll have to get that moving. So just want to make sure our timeline is accurate based on the board expectations.
Yeah, so under this, it said recommendation, no action taken.
Correct.
So that is one thing we'll discuss after all the other ones.
Very well.
Commissioner space in the new government center. Commissioner Ketchmark had expressed concern about commissioner safety in the offices and wanted to modify the commissioner offices. There was discussion regarding just having one office done or having them all so that they all look the same in there. This area is behind the security area. And the question I have regarding this one is that there was two options, and I don't know if we ever clarified which option we wanted, option one or option two.
Thought we did.
And I don't recall that, because I had quoted out a number of 14,500, but there's 7 offices back there for the current commissioners and future commissioners. So if we did option one, number I came up with was $18,589.55. Option two was $10,961.72. But talking with Alan, he said he had a final price of 14,000 something.
Because there was a glass savings on it, that by removing it, there was a credit, I think, on the glass, which was like $500 per office, I think, was what it was.
So then we were choosing option one, and that's where those numbers came with?
I think it ended up, and I think Alan might have to dive in here to discuss, but my recollection as what was quoted by Alan was to be a door with a window in it. On the side, there'd be a side light on the top. The bottom would be closed in, and that was to be enclosed in drywall.
And that was option...
Which would be more similar to what is option two in the materials that were in the meeting, so.
So it was actually something different then?
That's, again, these were preliminary numbers that were pulled together for that meeting. So they had, after the meeting, Alan had gone back to the team and worked through it, so it might be good just to verify that with Alan. I see he's got his hand up, so.
Alan, can you help clarify us?
I can try.
I can't hear him.
Good morning.
Speak up, speak up.
Can you hear me now?
We can't hear you. Hang on a second.
I'd have to come downstairs.
You want me to run down?
You're really quiet.
You're getting a little bit better.
All right, I'll talk really loud to know everybody in the office. So I think it's option two is the one you're talking about. They're looking at the cost is just under $14,000 for all 7 commissioner offices. It includes a vision panel through the top of the door, and then a side light with only the top half of the side light alongside the door having glass. The bottom portion of that would be drywall. I think it was option one was the option to have a metal infill panel. The less expensive option was to drywall that bottom half of the side light. So that cost was just a touch under $14,000.
7.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
So then my estimate was fairly close then, originally.
Yeah, it was pretty much right on. I think we had estimated 15,000. We're right about 14,000, and some of that efficiency, I guess, is really related to the drywall. We'll see how that goes. They did give us the option of the price as a not to exceed on the drywall portion of it, so we're going to keep track of their time with the hopes that there's some efficiency for the office front redo of the framing and drywall.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Item 4 was the American Rescue Plan Act. There were some discussions. We had been waiting for some clarifications from the government, and some of the four things that we had discussed was responding to public health emergencies, addressing negative economic impacts, serving the hardest hit, and improving access to infrastructure were the 4 that we kind of, at this point, had settled on. And I'm not going to read all these different things, but we're going to have some continuing discussions tomorrow. I believe some additional oversight had come out from the government again, which will help us decide how we're going to continue moving forward with what we will be accomplishing. So that will be tomorrow at 1 p.m. had met on June 8th, which Commissioner Ketchmark's going to talk about, I think.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the Committee of the Whole on June 1st.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Betts, second by Commissioner Ketchmark. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So now for the recommendations. The Buffalo Clinic Memorial, the recommendation was that Commissioner Hewsome, I'm not sure that needs to be moved at this point. That's just discussions yet to go on. The one that does need to go for, instead of recommendation or no action, we do need to approve this one for the contract. So I would entertain a motion for that, and regarding whether or not we want to go out for bids for by April next year, so that administration can get their ducks in a row to get all that out there.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to extend the contract to April of 2022 and to go out to bid for subsequent years in the first quarter of 2022.
For the ABM.
For the ABM, yeah, for the building.
Mr. Chair, I will second that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Betts, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any discussions? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All the same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner space in the new government center. So we do have clarification on what the cost is. It's right around that $14,000 range. And again, this is to make all offices behind a secured area look identical, eliminate the windows, and just have walls. Since I didn't approve the original building, I have no intention of approving this modification either. So I will entertain a motion and a second for this.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the changes for the commissioner space in the new building.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Ketchmark, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any discussions?
Mr. Chair, having looked at this, and I don't know, I'm going to not go forward with making the change. I just don't think it's necessary in its entirety, so, I think the original way it was laid out is more than safe and secure, so, and blindsiding anyone.
Any other discussions?
Yeah, I mean, I like the windows, but in some ways, I guess it is nice. I mean, it'd be similar to what we've got now, essentially. You can still see if someone's there or not, but if we didn't have any windows in back, then that would be different, but,
Well, it's worked well for the offices for the attorneys and court services, so
you would?
said the way these were set up are identical to the court
Yeah, I mean,
services and the county attorneys.
You're right, I do like that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay.
Motion
You got
denied,
it.
3-2.
And I guess I didn't understand that there was gonna be a window in the door. Because I guess if it's gonna be closed, I would like to see who came up to the door. That was my point. And that's why I guess I kinda went the other way. And now,
Well, it's like ours, there'll be a side light where you can see.
yep.
And I do like the way they have it set up with the attorney's offices and so. Okay.
Okay, in the American Rescue Plan Act, there was, the recommendation was to continue discussion for Tuesday, June 8th, and I believe Commissioner Wetter will be talking about that one.
Yeah, what do you need?
All right, so,
Workshop.
County Board Workshop, Commissioner Ketchmark.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So June 8th, workshop minutes. First item was Health Partners Clinic discussion. So this is about the Health Partners Clinic that was approved by the past board to go in the new government center, about 1,500 square feet. It's proposed to open in April 2022, about 3 days a week. There was discussion about what type of lab work they do. They follow regular procedures for Health Partners, and outside of that, some items and work would go to Regions Hospital. There was discussion comment that the county may save a lot of money for potential insurance renewals by being able to control the cost factors for the service. I summarized it as due to the potential costs and speculation of usage and other reasons that I didn't support pursuing the clinic. That was informational only. Next item was the Charlotte Lake Martha Subordinate Service District. There was a whole presentation where Attorney Isleason summarized the committee meeting over there, where it was formed in 2001 regarding upkeep of the sewer and the project over there. There was debate about the amount, couple different amounts for assessment on whether it should be one-year assessment in the amount of $2,511 or another option of 2,854 hours spread out over 3 years. And there was a recommendation that another meeting needed to be set up after getting preliminary numbers for the assessment, and public hearing will come into play also. 2022 budget was addressed by Auditor Treasurer Hivala, and it was decided that there was some more information and numbers that should be included before we go forward with more of a review. So recommendation was that county staff would meet with some commissioners to go over that for the future. The next item was a compost facility follow-up from the May workshop, where Alan Wilczek weighed in that he had a couple estimates on the project as far as usability of enclosing the hangar building out there, and also a study to check on the feasibility of having the fire department training facility out there. And there was recommendation that Administrator Kelly reach out to department and office heads to see what's exactly stored out there for property, and to reach out to the fire chiefs in the county to get an update on interest in having the fire training facility. Mr. Wilczek will go forward with the structural assessment with the different options for the hangar and the other building at the compost facility. And we spoke about teams and county boards meetings, and if the office or department heads are on the agenda on a timed item or consideration, that they'll be present at the meeting. Otherwise, teams will be acceptable. And we're also going to be keeping up with administration and any law changes that may happen here in the coming future as it relates to that. That's all I had.
Chair, are you going to make a motion for the minutes and the recommendations?
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll make it. That's fine. I don't know if you're going to make it. I can make it.
Okay. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for the workshop on June 8th, 2021 as given.
And
do you want to adopt the recommendations, or do you want to do it separately?
I don't know if there's any recommendation.
There was some recommendations in there.
And to accept the recommendations.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would view that there was discussion about moving forward with those analysis for the compost site.
Yep.
So we'd like clarity if in fact we're going with both of those
I'll
studies.
second that motion.
Okay.
Ryan's here.
Brian?
Mr. Chair, just on the Charlotte and Martha, a couple of quick items. It mentions, I think a zero was left out. It says the shortfall was around $40,000. It should be 400,000.
Okay.
And then on the next page, the second to last paragraph, it says the city had to do there was an unexpected bill of $70,000 for commendation costs. That would be like, actually it would be more accurate to say eminent domain. It was the city acquiring an easement across some land. So, also Steve Bott contacted me, and he wanted the minutes to reflect that any work on the main lines and the streets would be at the county's cost. He said that was discussed at the meeting, and maybe an appropriate place would be at the top of that second page where it says the lines on the street are owned by the county, which is why staff thought a maintenance fund would be a good idea. We could say any repairs on those main lines will be at county cost.
Mr. Chair, you know, I think it's weird that the clarifications for what is done and not done, it lives within minutes. I feel like there should be some sort of a contract between the city and the subordinate district outlining ongoing further expenses, just because I look at it from ditch situations when agreements live within minutes. Sometimes they end up getting lost when if there's actual legal contract that's signed between the county and the city would probably make more sense outlining that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Vetch, I think that's, this is a project that's gone along quietly and fairly successfully for 20 years, but I think going forward, that's likely to happen is to flesh out the agreement a little bit better with the city.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Kaczmarek?
Thank you. And I wasn't at the meeting, but I don't know if any diligence should be done to, if we're going to put something in the minutes, if it actually was in there. And not that it's a clarification, but this is actually, was it part of the minutes or wasn't it, right? We can't ad lib, I don't think. But do you have any recollection if that language was part of the meeting?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Kaczmarek, I believe that was, discussed that, in fact, I may have said it, that, hey, the city did us a big favor by fixing the sewage bubbling up in Sean Riley's ditch, and we didn't get a bill for it, but there was mention of the fact that in the future, they'll send, if they fix it, they'll send a bill to the county.
That's right.
Okay.
That was
I just wanted to make sure that was actually part of the minutes, or if we had to look back in the record, or.
Well, and I want to make sure we're not tying ourselves to some things in these minutes here to a contract that we haven't even got to negotiate. That's.
That's something that can be discussed as part of that public hearing, and I think it would be a good discussion to have, because this should not be on the county's dime. This should be on those that benefit from it, just like a county ditch. So that should be part of that public hearing for the discussion. Whether or not they want to be surprised, or if they want to start having money set aside for these future repairs, because there'll be repairs coming in the future.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Wetter.
I was listening in on a bunch of this, and I mainly was listening to them. But I think it was sort of figured that it would just be assessed to them, divided up the costs.
And that's fine.
And be on their assessment if there were any costs to, in that way.
And again, that's at a public hearing that we can that's an option.
And that's
where the surprise comes in.
And that was the surprise when they opened up their bill and saw what it cost.
That will be up to those residents and how they want to do it.
That's right.
They're the ones that benefit from it.
Exactly. I wasn't going to tell them. They could.
Okay, Angie, you got all those different things down?
Yeah, I'll be good.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Committee minutes, Commissioner Wetter.
Okay, June 8th, and that was a continuation of the American Rescue Plan. We actually have received the first half, which was $13,439,055. And the rest would be next year received. There was discussion about how we would spend this money, both through the internal department and external applicants. And we were given some forms on what some of the different areas we could use this money in, and education, jobs, and training. 4-H was mentioned, and career exploration camp and consumer outreach, and that would be the joint effort between Sherburne County and Wright County.
Could be.
Yeah, could be. Business and economic relief, that was just suggested to reach out to various agencies. In families, we talked about a little bit about domestic violence and mental health, the rivers of hope, and maybe safe families. Support to schools, we were talking about after school program, and request would place an additional counselor in each district, school district. Also in internal county expenses, Health and Human Services would like to purchase a programmable sign, and it was suggested that possibly 2 would be bought. In mental health stabilization, their outreach and crisis expansion, talk about integrated social workers and law enforcement, de-escalation training for county staff also was discussed, transportation and infrastructure, that was kind of open, broadband, water, and sewer infrastructure. We talked about supporting city and township water and sewer infrastructure via a grant program. And then I mentioned that these programs would only last 4 years, and that should be really presented out there, that it was a 4 years these programs might be in existence, and they possibly would disappear after that. So recommendations. Staff will determine which programs are eligible and ineligible, and staff was going to determine if better suited funding sources are available for some of the proposed programs. The commissioners will identify the top 3 programs that they would like to pursue. And I believe that was mainly in the education, jobs, and training area. Also, Wright Technical Center would be contacted, and continuation of this meeting about the American Rescue Plan would be continued tomorrow at 10:30. I'm getting dry. So.
Motion and.
And I will make the motion to accept those recommendations and the meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Wetter, second by Commissioner Batch. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Batch,
All right.
personnel.
Last week on Wednesday, the Personnel Committee met. Myself and Commissioner Dowlight, along with number of other people. The first item we discussed was the Health and Human Services Public Health. Due to the pandemic over the last years and ongoing, public health has had an increased demands on their services. They, at this time, are asking for them to be able to utilize an immunization cooperative agreement vaccination grant to contract with an RN, basically making it cost neutral to the county. Through the discussion, not to exceed 20 hours or a cumulative total of 600 hours. The recommendation was to approve the contracted RN position for public health, not to exceed the 20 hours per week or no more than 600 hours for the remainder of 2021. The second item that was on discussion was the IT department brought forward their last two positions that were approved at the previous year's budget. So these two positions are budgeted positions but needed to get approval based on the discussions of what they wanted to come forward with, because at the time of budgets last year they weren't quite sure what their needs were, but they do know that they did have needs. The first one was to move forward with another IT business analyst. The couple that they have at this current time, their workloads are exponentially full, and they're looking at bring another one on. We'll hopefully be able to continue some of the progress forward on the software development, as well as just moving forward a lot of these programs. The other one was to go full circle and bring back the senior TSS position. Previously there was a senior TSS position which was probably a couple years ago reclassified to a TSS supervisor. So now they're coming back and wanting to bring back that senior TSS position, which will still be underneath that reclassified TSS supervisor. So the recommendation was to approve the hiring of a senior TSS support specialist and the business analyst. With that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendation. It's for the Personnel Committee on June 9th.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Batch, second by Commissioner Hewson. Is there any discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Administrator Kelly, broadband minutes.
Thank you, sir. As you mentioned, we met on June 9th as the Broadband Committee with commissioners in attendance, Vetchen de Leiden, as well as a number of staff. We also had a presentation by Mr. Nathan Zacharias from the Minnesota Rural Broadband Coalition. So he kind of talked through some of the items that have happened relative to the legislative session up to that point. Specifically that there's $70 million that's being put into the border-to-border broadband program for the upcoming year. It's planned to be spread over 2 years with $35 million each year for that. Talked a little bit about the application process for that. One thing that we did talk quite a bit about is the speed test that's out there. We've been trying to promote this as well as the Rural Broadband Coalition has in order to get more data statewide on what the actual availability of internet is throughout the state. Talked through some of the upcoming requirements and kind of what they're looking to have for speed throughout the county, both as part of the border-to-border program. Some more data is being gathered. The second piece we talked about was some feasibility studies relative to broadband. We received 5 proposals that was presented by Elizabeth Carls. Talking about what the current state is of broadband in the county, to explore where it needs to be improved and what would be the strategy to best meet the needs throughout the county. We narrowed the selection down to 2 different vendors there. The recommendation was to approve the contract with Design 9 pending the reference checks and an interview, which will be conducted by Elizabeth Carls. We have created a small web page regarding the Broadband Committee, so we briefly reviewed that. And item 4 was John Holler mentioned that we could have some marketing opportunities perhaps on the backside of the Parks and Rec flyer that goes out to help promote people to do the speed test. And then just spoke about the next meeting will be set at a board meeting. So summary of the minutes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendations from the Broadband Committee on June 9th.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Wenner. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I would recommend that we forego advisory committee updates as we have another meeting and a number of people waiting.
I was just gonna say that, unless
I
there's
agree.
something important that somebody needs to state right now.
Nope,
on
I can
what's
tell
going
you
on.
next week.
Okay, if that's the case, we are adjourned at 10:32, and we will reconvene in about 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Or committee of the